Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr, and this is episode 165, and it is a real life update. So, I did not get the writing done this week, and I thought I'd kind of go over why, because even I was kind of surprised. Like, yes, I was busy, especially early in the week, but it didn't feel like I was really so busy that I couldn't have written. And so, first of all, I'll give the busy part. It's not really an excuse because, like I said, I don't think of that as the real reason why I didn't get things written. But it probably is a good idea just kind of give a background of what's going on in my life. So I've been dating now for a couple of years, and we're now engaged. We're going to get married next month. And she is looking to sell her home. It's been very difficult trying to figure out a way to live together because of our situation. She still has one kid who is under 18. He sort of needs to be in his particular school district. And, I have cats. She's allergic to them. So just moving in straight, just one of us moving into one another's house wasn't going to work. And so we've been kind of working on it, and it's been very tricky and very difficult. So she's looking to sell her house. So I've been going over to her place pretty regularly for the last week or so, trying to help her get her place ready. So she's sort of like semi-moving out of it for a month. She's staying at a place, and, she's renting an Airbnb for a month, which apparently isn't too expensive right now just because apparently, demand is rather low. So, they're happy to rent, at a relatively low price. And yeah, so, she has a lot of stuff in her garage. She puts other stuff in her basement, and then, so the house looks almost empty, and that also makes it sort of safe for people to come in, during COVID and, do look around the house without, a bunch of people being in there, or, not knowing what surfaces have been touched when she goes back, stuff like that. I mean, she'll go back in, she'll, do a once over of all the, touchable surfaces and so forth. And that's all she'll have to do if she has to move back in. So hopefully she'll get, offers on her house and get her house sold in the next month. Could happen. If not, she'll have to move back in, and she most likely will take it off the market if she doesn't get at least some serious offers within the first, like the first month or so. She has a little bit more than a month to do it. I think she has like 5 weeks. So, yeah, but even towards the end of the week, when things were starting to open up a little bit, I just was not writing, and I think it's just, I can't even put a name to it. I guess it's just feeling, sort of worn down by everything. Life has been so strange the last few years, ever since my wife died. And, the first few years were, just awful. I was working, but then I realized, okay, I have enough, life insurance that I can make a go of it, without just a regular job. And so I've been doing that. And that's been fine and all, but it was very strange. Then I met my wife, through a dating app. Nothing too surprising. This is a couple years ago, a little more than a couple years ago now. And, and we've been dating ever since. And it was nice, especially, before COVID, like having a girlfriend and sort of living something like a normal-ish life again. It's one of those things that for a while, you don't feel it can happen. For a while, like it's something that you feel is taken away and you can't have again. But then it did, and it was very wonderful. And now, of course, it's not really the same again. Fortunately, we had a couple of rough months when we were trying to be extra, paranoid, because, there are lung issues on both sides of our families. We weren't sure what the situation was in terms of, how, it was transmitted. It seems now that surfaces are, it's sort of a hard way for it to be passed. It can happen, but it's pretty rare. It's mostly from, close contact and breathing on each other, which is why masks are so important. And it frustrates me no end that some people are against it for no good reason. And it's not going to happen until either there's a vaccine or until these people get their act together, which they're not. They're lost. They're completely, they're completely lost. Anyway, so especially those first few months of the year were really rough because we were actually separating from each other as well, just to be extra safe. Once we were pretty sure that we could at least be around each other, and the risk was still minimal, we've done that, and that's been a huge help. But still, I think both of us, and including our kids, are a little worn down. I just, like, towards the end of this week when I should have been writing, and I knew I should have been writing, I found myself just doing, like, nothing for hours on end, like it was a vacation or a weekend or something. And I don't really have those. I mean, my schedule is very weird, but, I mean, it's also very flexible, so, which is great, but it also means that I have to, keep on myself to keep this up. There's no one forcing me to write except myself. And I just could not get myself to write this week. It was very strange. It wasn't exactly procrastination either. I mean, I know what that feels like because I've done that. It happens. Like some weeks, you're kind of busy and then you kind of put it off and then you have to push. I just could not force myself to push it this week. It felt, it was a little disheartening, but I really do feel that I can pull myself together and then get the writing done for next time. So that is my plan. I don't feel like I'm depressed necessarily, but I definitely feel like I'm in a kind of a weird place. And it'll be good to sort of get past it, figure out a way past it or through it, or just kind of ride it until it kind of dissipates. I don't think it's more serious than that. I guess if it feels more serious or if it gets more serious, I will have to do something about it. But at this point, I feel like I can get by, just kind of writing it out. I'm not having like horrible thoughts or, like anything like that. My sleep's been a little off, but it's not like having a hard time getting to sleep. It's just being in that weird mood and then ending up going to sleep very late because of it. So I don't think I need to worry about that, but I'll keep an eye on it. So anyway, so very strange week this week. It has really not happened to me like this before during the 100 or so episodes that I've now been doing the writing. I've had weeks where, the writing goes very smoothly and I do a little bit every day. That's kind of what my kind of goal is. Like I do try to write a little bit every day. And sometimes it doesn't happen, but, then I just pick myself up and I go for the next day and I go for the next day. And yes, there are times when, it all gets bunched into the last 2, 3, 4 days towards the end of the week. And I've just sort of learned to live with that when it happens, but to still try to write in a more, even way so I'm not pushed towards the end of the week. This week, that just could not happen. So hopefully, we'll see what happens going forward. I'm still looking forward to finishing up the story. I even have an idea for another story after it. So it's not, it's not exactly a lack of ideas. It's just a strange mood that apparently I just need to work through. And hopefully, if you're listening to this, you're doing okay. Everything's so weird right now that I understand, if you feel isolated or frustrated or bored or sad or even angry. I get a lot of anger just because I know that most of the problems we have in the United States would be solved if people were just following the science, putting on their goddamn masks on a regular basis, and just halting the spread of this. But instead, there's just too many people out there, and they all seem to be conservative, and they are just following these insanely asinine ideas. Anyway. But, so I understand anger, too, if that's what you're feeling. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and call this an episode. It's a very weird one, but sometimes these update ones are. I do them a few times a year, and usually there's a little bit more to say. This one's very nebulous. Like, usually there's, like, news or, like, a whole series of stories to tell. This is just... And I understand if you've hated it, too. Like, feel free to write me back and say, this episode sucked. Because I don't really have any stories about it. It's just like what's happening, and it's all just kind of happening inside my brain. So anyway, I hope you have a good week. I will see you next week, and I will find a way to push through my current mood and get back to writing. Because I also want to find out what happens with Carden and Gwen and Aaron and the family and the island and the town. So have a good week, and I will see you next time. If you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, cryptobiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. Thank you for listening. Words and music, copyright 2020, CryptoBiography LLC, all rights reserved.